When I was in my 40s, I went through some pretty significant heavy duty changes that probably coincided with perimenopause and menopause. And then in my 50s, there was kind of another shift and another awareness and another kind of growth spurt. And then in my 60s, there was yet another kind of whoosh sense of power. And I have come to learn that these phases in my life coincide with some really significant planetary patterns. So I wanted to talk with Inese Soncika, who is so knowledgeable about astrology and guidance that can come from that. And I wanted to talk to her today about, about that very topic. Things like Jupiter returns and let's get into it.
First of all, thank you so much for having me. It was really quite profound, like to go deeper into this research, because I'm just entered my 40s. So I'm crossing one of the bigger ones that is mainly Uranus opposition. And we'll go all of 3 and then add the other few.
Sure.
But yeah, so the biggest ones that coincide kind of the premenopause and menopause is Uranus opposition that happens depending on a chart. Like, so it's really good to find in your chart as well. So Uranus opposition, then at 40 to 44, I was looking exactly when mine will come, and mine will be when I'll be 44. So that's in 4 years. So it can happen depending on a chart between those years. So that's the first one. I will go deeper. And then there's 49 to 59 is where our Saturn return. No, Chiron return, sorry. And then the third bigger one, kind of there's 3 rites of passage that takes us into the wisdom and elder years is the second Saturn return, which is around 59. So
yeah, I can say like the minute I turned 60 was like, oh, it was a good thing. It was a good thing.
Yeah, it's can like the Saturn one it's usually people are quite scared because the first one comes at 29, which is kind of very profound, like that's where we grow up. And the second one can be not as intensely felt, but also depends on how you have dealt in your life previously. And so it happens around every 30 years, 29 years in our lives. So the second one is the third one of the kind of the 3 rites of passage. So do you want to go like into separately? Maybe we'll start with like Uranus opposition and Chiron.
Let's do that because that is maybe the in terms of perimenopause and menopause, when many women at this age are experiencing physical, mental, emotional challenges. And so this Uranus opposition might be bringing something to the party, right?
A lot. It's kind of like a big wake-up call. So just I was researching and also looking at my experience. So before Uranus opposition, so they kind of can overlap. There is a Pluto square and there is a Neptune square. So I'm going to quickly kind of, they kind of they introduce us into that like big Uranus opposition when we kind of wake up. There's electricity, there's truth coming through, there's like things fall apart. It's like it coincides also with the tarot card Tower, the Uranus opposition. So it's like things that no longer serve us fall apart, and so that we can become more of who we are. The truth comes out. Like it's kind of we are awakened, like we like fall into our more individual selves, and we can also surprise ourselves, like the way we react. Like there's no, the bullshit detector is kind of switched on to anything that like any area of our lives, and we also towards ourselves. So we kind of like, okay, where have I been bullshitting myself, if I can use that word?
Well, yeah. I was going to say, that was when I started to ask myself, is this true? Is it still true? Do I still believe this? So what you're saying, the bullshit detector turning on even on ourselves.
Definitely, big time. And so the prior as the Pluto square, which I'm going through, and the Neptune that is starting to impact me. So Pluto is kind of upheaval. everything's been brought up, like your identity kind of crumbles a little bit if you're like, and then you need to find like who you really are under any kind of beliefs and conditioning, and things can happen in your life, like forces out of your control that kind of takes you, like I went to share my personal experience like the last month through like a very deep kind of underworld experience, where I was like, oh, look at yourself, like, oh, is this who you are? Is this who you want to be? So this is kind of introduction, and then there's a Neptune Square, and that's like a dissolute. So this is us trusting, surrendering, and being patient. And is that trust in universe, like that's like but also dissolution of beliefs or things that might be illusions in our lives that we have carried from our previous kind of 40 years. So these can go in that sequence: Pluto square, Neptune square, and Uranus opposition, or they can overlap. So I'm kind of in that phase right now, which is really interesting. Do you want to share any kind of memories or experiences from your, like, let's say, when you had this like around 40s?
Right. It felt like a falling apart. Very angry. There was a lot of anger, and I didn't know where it came from. So, and I'm not an angry person. I mean, that's not my default emotion.
Yeah, I feel it.
So, I didn't know where the anger was coming from, and as hormones start to shift, it's just kind of these layering on of other things as well, and so and it's where I was in my career and where my kids were. They were in their preteens, entering their teenage years, and it's like, everything is changing, and the ground feels uneven, and there's a lot of tossing and turning, literally in bed, and a little bit of anxiety.
Definitely.
So disruption.
I would say, like, all of the things you mentioned, like that's like kind of what I've been experiencing, which is really interesting timing for this podcast as well, to talk about, to bring my personal experience for this, and later then you can kind of share yours. Definitely kind of upheaval of all the things, and a little bit fear and doubt, and then moving through those and finding, for me, it's also what I've been getting is returning to that purest form. Okay, who am I? Like, what am I doing here? Like, what kind of things I've been carrying? Like, when things fall apart, like, so Pluto, it's kind of forceful energy. Like, let's talking about that Pluto square, Neptune square, and Uranus opposition, they kind of go together. And then when Uranus opposition comes, it's kind of like that electric energy, where we, like you, when you said, like asking yourself questions to, do I believe this, like whether it is internal or external. Astrology has been, that's why I love astrology, because it's been this incredible map and guide. And also we can, if someone's watching and they are pre-Uranus opposition or pre some of the transits that we'll be discussing, also how to prepare for them. So because these big planets, like, they will, if you yourself don't do the work and try to hold on to things, because Uranus will come like, it will like swoosh out like stuff, like it can be sudden kind of series of events, and you're like, oh, what's happening? So you're kind of needing to work with that energy, that's why astrology is helpful as well, and preparing for those phases, and not having maybe less fear and having more courage to, like, okay, let's face this.
That's a really good thought. Being less fearful about it, because it can be disrupting, and you can fight it all you want, but it'll catch up.
And it's exactly, and it's there to ultimately wake you. Uranus is an awakener. It's that energy that, like, it can like coincide, like, let's say, with the sweat and all the irritation and waking up in the night. It will push you to limits, and it will be kind of this like wake up to who you are, and then through, like, let's say that the period of where we're going through this phase of shifting hormones and changing how we feel and having these kind of physical discomfort, we are pushed to limits in a way, and we have to wake up. And we also start like understanding that we are mortal, like in this life, like with this body and with this self, like you have that much time. What are you doing with it? Are you happy? Like, are you happy in your relationship? Are you happy to how you are as a parent? If you are a parent, are you happy in your career? And the more you hold on, the harder it will be. The more you follow this kind of insight to where you kind of are called to and what is your truth, the more easier it gets. Like, and let's say it's not easy always, like the fear, the doubt, the insecurities will come, but knowing who you are and falling in that trust and learning who you are as well has been like a big part, like learning, strengthening that divine connection with your own higher self, or however you want to call it, through meditation or through different practices. Like I'm actually starting a therapy because it's been a long time coming, and it's just so timely. And it's like all that stuff that I've been carrying with that feels like a big bag of stuff that I don't no longer need or want to carry. It's coming up, and
That's
I
so
want
interesting. I started therapy when I was in my early 40s.
Yeah,
It's like,
it's a really good time.
Let me start. Is this as good as it gets?
Yeah. It was a difficult last month, and now I feel like, wow, I am so ready to move on. I don't need to carry that. So there's this kind of cycles. There's like this like pressure, and then there is like this surrender. Okay, what's next? So it's like these like sudden epiphanies and insights, and also I think patience and trust in myself and trust in universe. That's been like what's been calling and grounding myself back into myself, and returning that purest form. Like maybe when you were younger, or maybe when you were smaller, when you have, what do you want to do with yourself? Like who you are in this world, what do you believe, and what do you need to change in order to align more with that, so that you stop struggling, that you stop suffering, like with all of those other things.
Yeah. So it's a good wake up call, and then what in the great cycle.
So the next, so that's the Uranus return and those like pre Neptune and Pluto squares, and then that's the 40s, like kind of. So you tell me as well. So when we kind of stop having our periods and like in menopause, that's around 50, right?
Yes, for many women. So this perimenopause might be 10 years long. So 50, 51, 52-ish. For me, it was 51.
Yeah, and that's not exactly, but also this. So next we enter Chiron Return, which is a huge kind of like a passage, like the second one of the menopause, if we want to look at it like these three big ones. So Chiron in our charts is where we have the wound, and Chiron was originally in mythology, like the wound, the image of the wounded healer. Like he was wounded, but then he learn to heal. He didn't heal himself like completely, which is like there's a message in that, but then he learned to heal others. So through these 50 years, as we go towards the 50, we have learned different things, and now is the time that we can we have learned, like also through the 40s, we learned different tools, different healing tools and variety of stuff, because there is like medical things, there's we feel our body aging as well, if that right?
Yeah.
So we search out or allow different ways to heal ourselves and take care of ourselves, I think, in that time.
Yeah.
And
the 40s are a good time to start laying a foundation for health, for being healthy as you age,
Exactly.
Body, mind, spirit.
Yeah, all of those things. And then in the way that Chiron works with us, when the return happens between it can go for 2 years. That's where we become aware, or let's say the wounds we've been carrying, and it becomes kind of, we start to see, like in the highest expression, we see the wounds as gifts, like through portals of wisdom, of light. Because when our heart is broken, when we experience loss or grief or heartbreak, our hearts actually crack open. And as human beings, our human egos, we don't want to suffer. We're like, oh, let's distract myself with Netflix binging or
Right.
something like that.
Yeah.
Or like heavier addiction.
Or or
Things like
alcohol
that.
or any of those addictive behaviors.
Yeah. And the more you kind of hold on to not wanting to face what hurts, the kind of darker it can get. But the more you're open, like the more you let that, like let's say, hurt or suffering, because depending on a Chiron in your chart, is really interesting also to look at, like whoever is listening or watching, where is Chiron in your chart. This was really also profound, like to study this and to learn this. So and see, and then at that Chiron return 49, between 49 to 51, around that time, we kind of tap into this awareness that our wounds are our portals to healing, portals to light, portals to wisdom. And also Chiron's glyph is a key. So there is a kind of symbolism of it's giving you a key to also now to guide others and teach
Oh, my
others and help
goodness.
others with that energy that you hold from Chiron, whether it's in your chart by sign and by house. You have probably, you or anyone have probably inspired or healed others just with that, because that's the energy of Chiron. We become so good at sharing that energy or teaching others from that Chiron space, because we are so aware of how it feels powerless in that energy. We each have this key then given, like we heal ourselves. Like after the Chiron return, it becomes more easier to see, like to heal and let go our wounding and not carry it like this big pain in the heart or wherever you feel it in your body, and like kind of release it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it can be uncomfortable, but if we tune and tap into that, our own energy, and connect it to the work, the healing work we can do, it can become profoundly healing, and the light, like our heart cracks open and all of those things, and we can be that light for the world as well.
That's so, to take what you've described in general and apply it to my 50s, that was a huge time of coming to forgiveness.
Yes. Yes.
And learning, taking that forgiveness and rebuilding a relationship.
Yeah.
Because
that's beautiful.
If you've truly forgiven, you don't have to forget, but you can forgive. And if you want, there's an opportunity to rebuild the relationship.
Yeah.
If you want. I wanted to. And so exactly what you said, the pain gets, and the dealing with it gets, it was a gift to be able to transform this pain into something that I could, and it was my choice, something that I could do.
That's beautiful.
That was very meaningful to me for, the next dozen years.
Yeah. It's that's really beautiful what you share. Like I get chills. And two things. One thing is forgiveness, and towards the others, but also towards yourself. I think there is like a big part. I think, especially those who are more sensitive and more the healers and light workers, it's a different energy for us to, and that self-forgiveness is huge in all stages, but especially I think around this transit. And then another thing you said about choice, that's, I think, applies to all of these big passages and all of how you work, because you always have free will. Like
Sure.
astrology,
Yeah.
there's a, like, it's a map, it's a guiding kind of this lamp in a darkness, like sometimes darkness, but it will always be our choice how much we participate in life, in those choices, in what universe brings in, because it's not always bad or good. There's no bad or good, like more challenging or more expansive experiences. It's also your participation, like in it, like you creating you as who you are, becoming more of who you are.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think the 40s sets that up. You're questioning, you're wondering, who am I? And then here, if you've done that work, and taken the opportunity to really sit with that discomfort and do that work, it opens this path to the key that Chiron offers.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
unlocks potential paths with this
Definitely.
new awareness of yourself, your goals, your values.
Yeah. And I definitely all of what you said. And also I think there is compassion, because it is a healing energy, even if it's like I say, like the hurts, the wounds can come up in a bigger way because they're ready to be healed. And like having that self-compassion to self-forgiveness to self-love, all of those things, when we integrate and embody them, only then we can really share that with others. You know what I mean? Like in a bigger sense, when we are really embodied in that truth, like, and accepting all of the parts, like you said, like Uranus opposition can just show up in this really way of showing like all, and especially I think the Pluto square, and I also have Pluto on my sun like now, and it's going to go back and and it's like showing you like who you are in just such a brutal sometimes way. But I am a Pluto person, like I have a very Plutonic chart, so I like it, but this time was like, wow, this one is really the transit and the energies we're talking like can feel like big and like disconcerting, but there's also these, they also give us like an openings, like, and these portals and ways to become who we are, I think, in a really big way. Because if we kind of like just fumble around life and nothing happens, like it's like, this is like I said before, that when we hurt sometimes and when we feel things very intensely, those are where we open to who we are. That makes sense.
It does. It's your little raw at those edges.
Yeah. By the end of 50s, we enter in our second Saturn return, which is kind of the third rite of passage. First Saturn return, which is really the biggest one of our lives, like one of the biggest transits. Like I think it's becoming so much more popular, and people are having podcasts like Saturn return.
Oh yeah,
and things
yeah.
like that. Yeah, because
Well, who
the
doesn't
first
like
one,
Saturn? Saturn's a beautiful planet.
it's nice that you see it that way, but a lot of people are like kind of, oh, Saturn, because Saturn is like the father of time, and it's like this, like there's this, I think we talked about this like strict father energy. It's like taking responsibility, it's commitment, it's waking, also another kind of wake up call. These all are wake up, they are all through our lives. We get wake up calls, sometimes softer and expansive and abundant, and sometimes more like, have you done your homework? Have you done like for the last 60 years?
Right.
Is what you're creating in this world standing a test of time? Are you really fulfilling your potential? Like these will come up, like these are, Saturn is more kind of this like parental energy, but also taking off the rosy glasses and like illusions. And because also we are becoming like, let's say 60, we are more to the other timeline wise, we are more closer to the end of our lives, as in this with this particular suit.
It became very clear. I was 61, and the phrase that kept coming into my mind was, I have more time behind me than I have ahead of me. What am I going to do with this really valuable time? You know, it becomes like really important that I just, the stuff that I don't give a shit about anymore, I better stop messing with it.
Yeah,
Really focus on what I care about now, because I don't have that much time. And maybe I do.
exactly.
Maybe I'll live to be 100, but still.
You will. I think you will. So this is something that you can share from your experience more, because I can look at this potentially because I haven't lived through it, but I just like energetically, I can tap into that. So yeah, you can share maybe a little bit more if you want to, like what, so it was 5 years ago for you? Like,
Yeah.
or something.
So yeah, I'm 66. So
Yeah.
so it I became very clear about reorienting to my true north,
Yeah.
because I did the work, because my 40s helped me do that, getting clearer and letting go and forgiving, and the freedom that comes with that. You know, I don't want to
Mm,
carry, as you said, I don't want to carry this anymore. I'm putting this one down. I
yeah.
don't care. It's a lot. I was lighter. Maybe,
Yeah. Oh,
and
it feels so good.
when I say that, at first I thought lighter in weight, but my light was clearer too. I realized that my career, which was very good, I enjoyed it, I was successful.
Mhm.
I started to reorient toward becoming a mentor for the people who worked with me, rather than being their leader. It became very
Mhm.
important to me to bring these other people up,
Yeah.
because I was
Amazing.
going to leave. So in
Yeah.
terms of my 3-decade career, 4-decade, however long it was, I knew I needed to leave specifically what I was doing, the kind of work, I was doing PR,
Hmm.
and marketing work. I needed to leave that, because
Yeah.
that no longer fulfilled me in a way that it used to. And I
Yeah.
needed to use my wisdom to guide other people. And in the 50s, the experience of forgiving not only myself, but having laid down a foundation of having done all that work, I wanted other people, other women, to
Yeah.
have that feeling. It was
That's
so
so
precious
beautiful
and valuable to me. That's what I wanted to do.
to
Is
pass on. Yeah,
it's like a legacy.
definitely.
What can I leave? How can I leave this place better than I found it?
Amazing. And legacy is one of the biggest Saturn words,
Oh my goodness.
legacy. Yeah, so that's beautiful you share that. It so aligns with all the kind of themes and keywords and energy of Saturn. Like when you really do your Saturn and come to that second Saturn return, and like it's beautiful what you share, like you become an elder, like there is that, like that's the third rite of passage, and then you pass on, like you say, your wisdom, and there's maturity, and you have to be mature. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm fine with that. I am not afraid of getting old. Now, I don't know if that's just me talking in my 60s. Ask me in 20 years when I'm 80, I don't know. But I, this is the most I have never felt as powerful and strong mentally, physically, because that's a hobby, but mentally and
Yeah.
emotionally and spiritually, I have never felt this strong. And I want other people to get to this spot. Maybe not in my
Yes.
time, but in their own time. I want women especially to come into their own.
That's why, like, that's why your work, like, even like for me, you've been one of the biggest inspirations of women, like just having taking that power and doing the work, and like the work that you're doing right now in the world and sharing is just so prevalent, so important, and so needed.
It
So I
is,
think
yeah.
it's beautiful.
Well, older women for so long have been like, oh, thousands, not thousands of years, but centuries, have been
Yeah.
marginalized.
Yeah.
If you look at the rise of patriarchal societies, these older, powerful women, they were pretty scary.
Exactly.
and
And
pretty
that's why,
powerful. And so you had to marginalize them and make them invisible. And there's no reason to be invisible. There's I may look, gray hair doesn't bother me.
you look amazing.
Wrinkles don't bother me because I know that I'm powerful.
Exactly. Oh, I love that. It just fills up my heart. I love that. Like, I'm so excited for all the people that will come into your field and learn and just remember, like, the old age is not where we become weaker or the opportunities are taken away. We could become more in our power and in our strength. And that's, I think it's important in today's world where the patriarchy has ruled for a while and we have forgotten it as women, some things, and there has been trauma, I think cellular trauma, DNA trauma that we carry. But I think it's time to remember that and wake up to who we are more as we grow older.
Yeah, you mentioned
I'm excited to grow older as well. Sorry.
Good. That's my goal, just to get people excited.
Yes.
And you mentioned Saturn being the father figure. Is that what?
Yeah, in an energetical sense.
We can the father energy, but maybe we can reimagine it just in our own cells as that's the matriarch, that's the crone energy.
Yeah, crown energy. I think maybe in astrology there's like that, like it is associated with male energy, but male energy can also, like, it's not necessarily a male as in world. Often it does symbolize that in astrology as well, but it's that mature energy. It's the male energy,
Yeah.
the teacher energy, is the elder energy, is the maturity, is the passing on the wisdom, all of those. So Jupiter returns is one of the most beautiful kind of transits that we experience through our lifetimes, and they happen every 12 years. So 24, 36, 48, 60, 72. So throughout every 12 years. Yeah, where we kind of have this influx and just injection of energy and life and confidence and opportunity. So that happens. So in connection to menopause, like, so that would be 48 and 60, and then later we can find 72, where we have these years where like, so Jupiter also works in this way, like it brings a lot of opportunities and abundance, but at first, like when we enter Jupiter return, it has to also clear out anything that kind of like doesn't. So it can be very expansive years. It can be years that opportunities come, people come. It's kind of this, for me, that I experienced that at 36, 37, it was like a very synchronistic phase where I was just flowing and expanding. And even though I still carried a lot of like my stuff, there was just this, it's almost like it was like this universe was guiding me, and I was fully trusting, and I was really enjoying it for most of the time as well. So I was taking all the opportunities that came in a way and
Well, good,
most of them. And this is where we start every 12 years. We end the cycle and we start a new cycle. So this is a huge, if you are going through it, you are, some of you, the listeners or watchers are going into this phase. This is a huge kind of way to set a foundation for the next 12 years or for the rest of your life in some cases, like I did in my 30, when I was 36, 37, where I started my astrology, like I really, like, I'm going to be astrologer. And
that's
I'm
when
going to
you
be
jumped into the deep end, huh?
Yeah, I was like, I have been studying this and learning this. This is my passion. This is who I am in a way. This is a gift that I've been given. I've done this for many lifetimes. I know that now. And I was like, okay, all opinions aside, people thinking I'm crazy, you can't be astrologer as a life path or career, as like, no, this is what I want to do. And I was just like, all fear aside, because Jupiter can give you a lot of confidence, and you can like, and I just took it as like, oh, I'm just gonna take this and make the most of it. It was great.
That's great.
so here I am, like practicing, like I've just really, it's been my medicine. My work has been my medicine, like following that that time where I had my Jupiter return, and then just expanding and going from that, and now like hitting that Neptune and Pluto square, it's more easy for me because I know I'm on the right path. I listened to my soul, even it was scary and I had fear. I had to tap into my courage. And there's a beautiful quote that I heard, which I watched this Oprah and Viola Davis. They have this conversation, and Viola Davis wrote this book, Remembering Me, or
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken, you can find it. And there was this quote, she talked about courage is just fear. What I should have pulled this up. Fear that's said its prayers. So courage is like that, and that really was like, courage has been something that's like been with me through all my life, and now I was forgetting it, like kind of like, and that really reminded me. I don't know where I went with all of this. But I think like if it's coming up, then I wanted to share that.
Well, but so, that sounds like what Jupiter brings.
Yes, the courage, the confidence. If we are not really aligned with our purpose at that time, it really kind of reignites itself, or it's being reborn, like the dream that you want to do, the dream that you want, who you want to become, what legacy you want to leave in this world, like, and what you want to share, all of those things, and just being at peace, I think, and joyful in who you are, which comes from doing your purpose, which comes from doing your kind of what you are supposed to do. So this is kind of ignites that and reignites that every 12 years. So it's really, I think, important to, because Jupiter does give, but you have to be ready to give. You have to do the work like prior. You have to be ready to receive, because a lot of us, like if we hold on to something like relationship, job, or something, we won't have space. Universe loves space. So if it's full, if you are in your anxiety and depression, and you are still holding on to something that you know deep in your soul that's not for you, there's no space.
Well, that's really interesting, because for many women, their perimenopause symptoms are at their most extreme around age 48. They've been in perimenopause, and now their menstrual periods are crazy. They're heavy, they're light, they're skipped. The kids, if you have kids, they're teenagers. Your parents might need extra help because they're aging. Yeah. If you're in a career, it may be that you have, if you might now have management responsibilities. It's like everything is pressing down on you. If the universe likes space and you have no space to give it, it'll tear you up. Yeah, it's hard. It's like I talk about perimenopause and the whole transition as being like a marathon. It's long, it's hard, and for the last few miles, you go to dark places, but you do it because crossing the finish line is so fabulous. But if you don't have the space to receive, it's probably really hard.
Yeah. So everyone who's listening in the future, make space for universe to give its blessings and to receive. Because if you do have space, which I've noticed, I've recently been really good at creating space, even if it's scary, within myself, being in that void space of being able to then receive and let go of the versions of me that are no longer really me, if that makes sense. Like you're becoming more of who you are, but you also kind of, they shed, like skins shedding, so the more you are receptive to new, and the change, which is the only thing that's constant, right?
Yes.
The more smooth these transitions can be. They don't always have to be very kind of painful and hurtful. They will be challenging, but it will be up to you how to navigate them.
I think that's where the discipline of self-care and the discipline of setting boundaries is probably very important throughout life. But if you haven't learned them by the time you're in your late 40s, it's a good time to start that practice and to because that would give you this, it's all happening anyway. But if you can set some boundaries and learn how to do some self-care, that will open some space.
Definitely. I think that's really the biggest thing, like learning self-care, self-love, learning who you are through that process as well.
Yeah.
And then we have another kind of few windows of like into our lives, which is Nodal Returns, which is at 18 is first, 18 and a half, then 37, 56, and 74. So this is like a little bit about the nodal. I'm going to explain just a little bit because that's something I really deeply work into my own practice. So we have the nodal points are points and not an actual like bodies, celestial bodies. So the south node is where we come from. It's our ego selves, our past incarnations. If you believe in that, you don't necessarily have to. And then the north node is what we come to learn in this lifetime. So when nodal return happens, when the transiting north node conjunct where your node was, when you north node, where you're going this life, your life purpose, conjuncts it like natally. So the transiting conjoins the one you had when you were born. So it's kind of a conjunction. It's called return through those years that I mentioned. So 37 and 56, 70. So those are times relevant to menopause time. So this is when the transiting north node conjuncts our natal north node. This north node is what we came to do in this life. This is like our kind of essence, that deep soul juiciness, what makes us happy. But north node is what we're learning. South node is where we have our past like kind of gifts, but also a lot of layers that are default layers that no longer serve. And north node will be uncomfortable and challenging, but it's where we will revel as beings, as souls. Like that's what we're learning. And when it comes to this return, it's like the universe kind of aligns and makes your soul purpose and your soul mission and who you are, makes it known. Like you feel it. Like from my experience, I felt it in my body. Like it's kind of coincided also with the Jupiter return, like in the 36, 37, and they both coincide. And that's why for me, I think it was that big explosion of like
boom,
purpose. Like it was this light. It kind of lit me up as well, because I was going through a lot of stuff like at that time, a lot of like in a way traumatic stuff. But that part, like I remember it as being just very expansive, because even though like the trauma was happening, like the hardship was happening, there was this like the purpose was so ignited that I was like, and like I said before, that was my medicine. Like that was like, I remembered who I am. Like when we have Nodal returns, it can be scary to like, because like I mentioned, it happened like when I decided to be an astrologer. It can be scary, but it's ultimately when you do that, like when you have the courage to do that again, it's like you kind of step into this portal and it kind of opens. It feels like an opening. It feels like people come into your life and kind of guide you and take your hand and help you and all of these things. And like, yeah, that's how it felt. It's different than Jupiter return because it's more connected to what we came here to do as a soul, a very, very deeply on a soul level. Like and this you can find in your chart by where is your north node in your yours as in everybody's, by house and sign, and then go deeper in that energy. But it gives us kind of this supportive platform of resources. The universe basically gives you resources where you can, when you feel supported, if you follow that north node energy, if whatever is in your chart. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Looking very gently. Yeah.
If you
So
go
this
this route, we will support,
yes, exactly. And if we
as,
hold
as
back,
opposed
like,
to, oh, I don't know, I'm falling
yeah,
off the wire.
yeah, and sometimes we fall off, but it's in order for us to step into more into who we are. Like every time we fall
Yeah,
off, every
okay.
time the job's been taken away, the relationship breaks up, like learning to see these as these profound lessons and portals to growth is, I think, one thing that as I've learned through learning astrology and through being who I am, and also through trusting against all odds into myself through those times, has made me who I am. Because if I can overcome that, if I can do that, like through my darker moments or the underworld, like metamorphosis, like I fall back on that. Like I could do that, I can do anything. So you kind of become, following North Node will be scary, but also will kind of take your soul to this level of bliss that is like, I don't know if anything else can do that.
So,
Okay.
so that then you had mentioned this third bonus phase, the Jupiter return. Is that there's another one when you're 60? There's
Yeah,
like,
but that's kind of like, so those two Jupiter
more the
returns that
same.
happen, yeah, they won't be all the same, but it's going to be like, so 36, 48, and 60, 72. So these like kind of
Okay,
these
got it.
bonus
Yep.
phases, like they all like, so these two like Jupiter returns and Nodal returns will be these more, well, Sol kind of injects that light. So they all kind of continue, like every time will be a different, like that cycle will feel different, but the similar energy will be the expansion and confidence and kind of tuning into that dream of who you want to be and what you are here to do.
And
So
if you missed it 12 years ago, I'm coming back for you.
yeah, which is always great. Like it's like life always has our back, and like it's, and remembering that the rites of passage, which can be more challenging, are the portals of to wisdom and light and growth and expansion. And even though they're difficult, because like the heart cracking open will feel difficult, but it's ultimately for light to pour through. There's a few ways to get older. There's kind of this stagnant way and just complacency, which like if you give into conditioning, and like a lot of it is conditioning and just not doing the self-work, or you can really embrace like those rites of passage. And I don't know if you wanted me to talk about some specific return,
Yes.
like
Yeah.
we have Jupiter return at 72. So
Yeah.
that's another one of those. And then Nodal return at 74 and a half, which is like, so this is like really, again, tuning into deeper purpose work and like the crone age, and really coming into that. Really, I see these, like I see if someone really has done their work and living in their purpose, these really beautiful women, like with gray hair and sitting there, and everyone comes to you for wisdom.
I've loved talking with you. What a fabulous conversation through aging and
Truly.
astrology. Thank you so much. Now, you have found your passion, as you mentioned earlier, that you followed that guide that you got. So you do readings. I know, because you've done one for me and it was fascinating. I had never done it before. So how would somebody get in touch with you if they would like to explore this more with you?
Yeah, so mainly can be through my website, which is inesesoncika.com, which you maybe can put somewhere, like if
I will put those in the show notes and share those. Yeah.
And yeah, and then on social media, Inese Soncika, you can just type in. I think I'm the only one. I might be the only one in the world with that particular name.
I
So
bet.
it's quite easy to find me on Facebook and Instagram if you want to connect with them.
And
So just my name.
I will be sure to have that in the podcast notes so that people can click through and reach you.
Amazing.
This has just been a fabulous conversation. I hope I've gotten so much out of it, and
Me
I
too.
knew where we were going, but I'm still sitting here going, wow.